The New York Times is the paper of record. It must be true. So that's an assumption that is totally incorrect.
That's exactly right.
As we talk about so many major issues that are in play, both in the United States and Canada and around the world, I'm really interested in terms of talking first about the United States a little bit. I'm not sure if we totally understand each other. So help us understand your discovery of the United States. What has that been like to live in the United States now for a number of years?
I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is that I think for a lot of Canadians, their understanding of the United States is mediated by media.
Yes,
and
right.
and and largely by for most people what I would describe as legacy media, which happen to these days especially have very, very similar narratives. And sadly, often these narratives turn out to be untrue, especially on the issues that are most important. It's not like everything is untrue, but when it comes to the sort of the hot button things, that the critical things that you really need to have, very good information on so you can make up your own mind what to think, right? Very often our legacy media lead us in the wrong direction. And I think, and this is certainly the case in the United States, but what I think I've noticed is that there's even a greater credulity to these legacy media outside American legacy media outside of the United States, and sort of the adoption of these narratives, whether it's in Europe or in Canada. And I think this is actually creates a huge problem because you're building foreign policy, you're having to have relationships, diplomatic relationships. If you're believing, I don't know, again, right, if you're gonna have your assumption be sometime in the 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, if you believe that the president of the United States is a Russian asset.
Right.
That would change dramatically what kind of relations you would have, obviously, right? If you believe that. And of course, this was fantastical and deeply wrong and actually created huge problems, possibly even leading to this war with Ukraine right now that exists. Some analysts believe that's absolutely the case. But when media aren't truthful, yet a whole lot of people believe them, this can create havoc, right? Both
So are
internally
you
in a
saying
country.
that, are you saying like I used to read the New York Times regularly or the Washington Post, all kinds of, key legacy media. There's a lot of great stuff in there, but boy, is there a lot of things in retrospect that were just utterly consistently wrong on almost every key issue. Is that what you're getting at? So then we in Canada tend to look at those media outlets and say, wow, the New York Times is the paper of record. It must be true. So that's an assumption that is totally incorrect. Is that right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And the biggest challenge, I think, is to find sources that you can trust. And the thing, I think I actually encourage people to do that themselves, right? To actually make that a project for themselves. Go out, look for some alternative sources of information, and then ask yourself, how are these sources doing? What is their record over time, right? An example, I mean, during COVID, one of the most terrible things, policies that was implemented during COVID, and I think there may be still people out there who are watching right now who disagree with this because they don't understand the what actually happened and what multiple peer-reviewed research studies now tell us. The school closures. A lot of schools were closed for considerable amounts of time. And this has
Yes.
and it was actually known at the time that this would have a devastating effect on our children. I mean, this is the focus of our societies is to, bring healthy, successful children, and have them live good lives in wonderful societies that we develop. But and this was kind of known, and even in a reality when children were, unless they had very serious multiple comorbidities and disease and
Hmm.
stuff like that, were virtually they really were in no danger from COVID at all. And they didn't even transmit it to adults. This is a curious feature of COVID, actually. If influenza works very differently, right? But COVID, and this was all known very, very early. So the idea of school closures from the beginning was not a good idea, and it was very clear. And there were many scientists who were, putting everything on the line apparently to tell people this. This is crazy. This is going to damage society. This is going to damage our children. Yet there was this overlying narrative, right? And led by many, and the New York Times was a great example of this. There was actually a journalist at the New York Times who, advocated hard for these school closures, all the while sending her own kids to private school, which wasn't affected.
You're
That's
kidding.
this kind of stuff actually happened.